Hey, Brandon here. Welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning in. Well, the 2024 draft is over, and on this channel, we are focused on the 2025 draft class. That is right. I am going to give you my top 20 wide receivers that you should be keeping your eye on for this upcoming 2024 college football season in preparation of the 2025 rookies that you'll be drafting in your Dynasty leagues, man. You play Dynasty, you play Fantasy. You're looking for a YouTube channel out there that's going to give you an early look at the classes in the future for your Dynasty rosters. Hit that subscribe button. Got all sorts of great content on this channel to get you prepared for your rookie drafts. I already dropped my QB show. I've already dropped my running back show. Now it is time for my top 20 wide receivers that are going to be headed to the 2025 draft, right? It's early. Yes, it is. It's only May. The NFL draft was less than a month ago. But I'm going to let all the Dynasty YouTube channels out there talk about the rookies. I've been scouting them for 2 or 3 years. This class coming up is going to be very interesting. The first question I get from my dashboard subscribers is, hey, Brandon, tell me, what does the 2025 wide receiver class look like compared to the 2024 class that we just experienced? And I'm going to say, we got some good guys at the top, not as elite as the guys that were just drafted. We don't have any Marvin Harrison Juniors, I think, in this class, but we've got some good people, some good players rather, at the top of the class. Now, I'm going to go through the show, guys. I'm going to give you my tiers, and we're going to go do 4 tiers. I'm going to give, and within those tiers, there's going to be the ranks of, the players of what round they're going to be going in the draft. All right. So it's a fun show. Hit that subscribe button. Again, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Let's get started, man. So, all right, on the screen here, you can see the tier breakdown. Let's get right to the top tier. In 2024, we had 7 wide receivers drafted. All right. Back in 2023, we had 4 wide receivers drafted in the first round. So my tier 1, round 1 players, I think we got probably 4 guys right now. It's a long way away that I would consider round 1, tier 1 draftable wide receivers headed to the 2025 draft. All right. First guy I want to talk about is Tatora McMillan, 6'5", 205-pound receiver. Going into his 3rd year at Arizona. This guy gives me Drake London vibes. I am not going to go into depth and detail of these players, but I can tell you on this channel, I'm going to be doing deep dives, scouting reports, rookie reports on all of the players that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to just give you an overview to give you, 20 names that you can keep an eye on. But Tatora McMillan, really, really interesting receiver headed to the 2025 NFL draft, man. He is going to be an exciting player. Gives me Drake London vibes. He's got the length, the height, 6'5", 205. He's a dog at the catch point. Really good receiver. Had 1,300 yards last year, 10 touchdowns, coming back, playing at Arizona. He'll be a true junior. So I'm expecting him to go to the NFL draft as a junior. Exciting player on this YouTube channel. I've got a spotlight video and a highlight or 2, maybe even 3 videos of him. So if you're not familiar with McMillan and you're watching this video and you're just getting acclimated to the 2025 rookies, go check it out. This guy plays above the rim really well. He's got some yak ability. He's got physicality, tough with the ball in his hands. Love his game. All right. Luther Burden, Missouri wide receiver, 5'11", 208 pounds, had 1,200 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. Really good receiver. Now, he's a jack of all trades kind of receiver, where McMillan is more of a boundary guy. He can play in the slot as well. But Luther Burden is just an offensive chess piece of a wide receiver. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first wide receiver drafted, just because of his versatility. Can play inside, outside, play out of the backfield. I've got 2 or 3 videos on this YouTube channel of him as well. Go check them out. You're going to see that he is used a lot, really more short area to the line of scrimmage than it is, longer downfield on vertical plays. But he's got great physicality. Like I said, 5'11", 208. He's got a thick, solid build, and he's going to be, like I said, a player that you can put all over the field and could be an offensive weapon. So these 2 guys, I think, are really the 2 top receivers in the class next year. All right, but close behind is Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, 6'1", 205 pounds, coming back for his senior year at Ohio State. As we know, Ohio State wide receivers get draft capital and get on the field on the NFL, right? We just had Marvin Harrison Jr. Egbuka decided to stay back Didn't have a great year last year. His production was down. He had 1,100 yards 2 years ago. He was nicked up. He wasn't 100% last year. He is going to be the guy this year with Jeremiah Smith, the incoming freshman, exciting player, 2027 NFL draft prospect. As we know, Ohio State just reloads the wide receiver room on a regular basis, and Emeka Buka is going to get first-round draft capital. I'm expecting a big rebound year from him. Just another all-around really good player, primarily played in the slot 72% of the time. So he's going to be primarily a slot receiver, but that doesn't mean he can't play out wide. And as we know in the NFL, they're looking for chess piece players. And Ibuka can do that. I'm looking for, for him from a scouting standpoint. I'm looking for him. I'd like to see a little bit more vertical play. He gets the ball really short, within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage a lot. Has some ability to be a yak damage kind of receiver with the ball in his hand. I'd love to just see more vertical prowess out of his game, hoping to see that. Let's hope the quarterbacks at Ohio State, I don't think they've named a quarterback yet there. Let's see what they can do and get him the ball in the field. All right, there's one other player that I think has the ability to be drafted in the first round in 2025, and that's Travis Hunter, 6'1", 185-pound wide receiver / cornerback. All right, he plays both sides of the ball. I have him in the list here because if he does declare as a wide receiver, this guy is an explosive playmaker, and there is no doubt I think that a team is going to just want his versatility. Maybe they throw him on cornerback if they have an injury or something like that, but this guy is just a special player. He's been playing both sides of the ball at Colorado for last year and came from Jackson State, the year before. So, he's Deion Sanders' son's friend with Shedeur Sanders and stuff like that. So Travis Hunter, a lot of people say he's going to go to the draft as a cornerback, but if it is a wide receiver, he will get round one draft capital. So that rounds out my round one. I think we were a little spoiled this year. I mean, we had some surprises this year with Leggett being a first-round pick and that type of thing. So, I think maybe next year this class isn't as deep as the wide receiver class, but there's some damn good receivers in this class. All right. So let's go to tier 2. That's round 2 and 3 on the screen. In 2024, we had 9 wide receivers drafted. In 2023, we had 10 wide receivers drafted on day 2 of their NFL drafts, respectively. All right. First guy I want to talk about is Evan Stewart. All right. 6'1", 175 pounds. I don't know if that's right or not. Let me check right here. I got an error here. He's 6 foot, 175 pounds. Plays at Texas A&M. All right. He now transfers to Oregon. All right. So he plays 2 years at Texas A&M, decides to bail. He's had 643 yards as a freshman, 514 yards for production as a sophomore with 6 TDs over 2 seasons. Really came out, flashed as a freshman. Had a decent year, decides to go to Oregon this year, and, I'm expecting big things over there. They got Dylan Gabriel throwing the ball right now, who's a nice college quarterback who has the ability to throw the ball vertical. Troy Franklin now is in the NFL. So Evan Stewart is going. He changed his scenery. I expect him to have another productive year, and I expect him to be the wide receiver 1 in Oregon this year. We're going to talk about another Oregon receiver here on this show, too. So they got 2 receivers that I think are draft eligible, pretty early in the NFL draft. But Evan Stewart, expecting big things this year from him. See what he can do. He'll be a true junior. So again, a lot of players that we're going to talk about, guys. I mean, some of these guys are going to go back and, play for their senior years. And we've got some players that we're going to talk about today that are in their 5th year. So with that COVID situation, a lot of these players have one more year of eligibility and they're taking advantage of that. And I don't believe the NFL is really super worried about ages, whether these kids are 22 or 23 or 24. They're looking for 1-year contracts for the majority of these players, especially when we get in rounds, on day 3. I don't think how old the players are really necessarily mean a whole lot. All right. The second guy I want to talk about in tier 2 that I'm super excited about, a guy that is like one of my guys that I've been talking about, is Antoine Wells Jr. They call him Juice Wells. He is a 5th-year player, but played 2 years at James Madison, really productive. 2022, he transfers to South Carolina, has 941 yards, 6 TDs, and then unfortunately he gets injured. Last year in 2023 was a wash. He decides to come back and, not come back to South Carolina, but he transfers to Ole Miss, stays in the SEC, and I love it. Now, this guy here, I thought that after his junior year, when he came back, he got hurt, unfortunately. I can see why he didn't go to the NFL draft. He didn't have a good tape his last year because he was nicked up, but he played one game against Georgia and had a very impressive run and everything. I like this guy. Not getting a ton of draft buzz, man, but I like this guy. 6'1", 208 pounds. I know there's a lot of players out there that ever get comped to Deebo Samuel. If there is a player that I think is a real comp to Samuels, I think or Debo, I think it's this guy, Juice Wells, Antoine Wells Jr. Probably higher on him than most people, but I don't think he gets out of day 2. And I'm expecting a huge year at Ole Miss. Actually, we got 2 Ole Miss wide receivers going to the NFL draft. One I'm going to be talking about here very shortly. Jackson Dart now has 2 great receivers to see if he can elevate his quarterback draft stock next year as well. We spoke about Jackson Dart in my QB show, so make sure you go check that out. All right. Next guy I want to talk about round 2 draft capital or day 2, round 2 or 3 is Isaiah Bond, 5'11". All right, he's 5'11", 182 pounds. Played 2 years at Alabama. Was really productive last year. Only had 545 yards, but made some big plays. Didn't get on the field much as a freshman. 2023 last year, he had that huge catch from Jalen Milroe at the corner of the end zone. That was a highlight film. Got them to advance to the college football playoffs, if you remember that play. But anyway, man, he is out at Alabama and he goes to Texas playing with Quinn Ewers. Should be the wide receiver 1. He played in the spring game and flashed already with some vertical plays that got everyone excited down there in Texas. But Isaiah Bond, he could maybe sneak into round 1. But he's going to have a really, really good year, all right? But Texas reloaded their wide receiver room. Isaiah Bond there is now, we're going to talk about another transfer that's also at Texas here very shortly. Another player. So Texas continues to reload the room. I think Texas has a great wide receiver room. Ole Miss has a great wide receiver room. Oregon has a great wide receiver room. So a lot of these players are coming from the same programs. All right, the second Ole Miss wide receiver I want to talk about, a guy that I think is undervalued right now, and really nobody's talking about him. He's a 5th-year player, and that is Trey Harris from Ole Miss, 6'2", 205 pounds. He played his first 3 seasons at Louisiana Tech. Transfers to Ole Miss last year and really has a great season, 851 yards, 8 TDs. But this guy, I just put a little film out on X, and I also have a highlight film on this YouTube channel, so go check it out. Man, this guy is a boundary receiver, played 85% of his position out wide, didn't play in the slot a lot, but I really like this guy's game, man. He is physical, good hands, goes up and gets the ball. There's a couple plays, man, on some of his films where he's making one-hand grabs, and they look really phenomenal. I really like his ability to create space, and, he does some damage with some good yak ability at that size, 6'2", 205 yards. I think he is another sleeper of mine. Both those Ole Miss wide receivers with Juice Wells and Trey Harris are guys that I'm really high on as we approach the NFL draft, 2025 draft cycle. All right, Barian Brown, I'm going to talk about 2 Kentucky wide receivers back-to-back here that I think could both be day 2 picks. All right, Barian Brown, 6'1", 166 pounds. Thin guy, right? We had Troy Franklin. A lot of people would say, does he have the physicality, to win in the NFL? Just don't think the NFL worries too much about it anymore. Of course, they have to be physical enough to shed, contact and be physical at the catch point and, when they got the ball in their hand. But, Barian Brown, he's had some drop issues, played 2 years at Kentucky. He is a true junior, had 600 yards his first year, 545 yards his second, 4 TDs in both seasons. So he's had some drop issues, but I think what really is special about Barian Brown is his speed. He is a speed demon, and he has some unbelievable highlights in the special teams part. With kick returns and punt returns, this guy's taken a few to the house. So I think there's going to be a team out there that, if he can put good film out there this year as a true junior at Kentucky, I think that the teams are going to be interested in him, especially with his special teams ability, and to be able to play him in both positions, I think is going to elevate his draft stock. All right. His teammate Dane Key, I have right behind him right now, 6'3", 195 pounds. I kind of like Dane Key a little bit more than Barian Brown. I kind of go back and forth, but you watch both of these guys play. They both seem to flash at different games at different times. But Dane Key's had 11 touchdowns in 2 years. He's played out wide primarily 87% of the time. So, he is a boundary guy versus a slot guy. Dane Key is another sleeper of mine. I think he's going to have the ability this year, if he really plays well, I think he's going to have the ability to really, really elevate his draft stock. So Dane Key is a guy that I would be circling, on my list right now. But I got him as a day two guy, and I'm probably higher on him than most. But from what I do, I watch a ton of film on these guys, man. So like I've been watching this guy, and he's got some space creation ability, good hands, good arm, big arms, long hand, long arms, big hands. Dane Key is a guy that I think could really elevate his draft stock with another positive, productive season at Kentucky. All right. A really fun player I want to talk about now, Tez Johnson, 5'10", 160 pounds, going to Oregon. Now, he's going to be a 5-year player. I was a little surprised he didn't declare for the 2024 draft. He is Bo Nix's stepbrother, and they played together last year at Oregon. So Franklin and Bo Nix now together in Denver. I was kind of hoping Tez Johnson was going to be, go to the draft, but he's decided to come back. Him and Evan Stewart are going to be a great 1-2 punch there in Oregon. He played at Troy for his first 3 seasons, transfers to Oregon last year, had 942 yards and 9 touchdowns. I actually have a film on Tez Johnson on this YouTube channel. Go check it out, man. Now, 5'10", 160, right? 160 pounds, and you're like, oof, yeah, he's small, but he is physical for his size, and he is not afraid of contact. And, the guy is an explosive playmaker. And we know, man, the NFL right now, they're looking for explosive playmakers. Get these kids in space and then get the ball in their hand and let them do some damage. The short area passing is on the rise in the NFL, and I really feel like Tez Johnson would fit a role. I have him here in day 2 because I just think he's so explosive. A team is going to take a shot with him, especially if he has a great season and if he gets over 1,000 yards and really put some good tape out there for the season. I can see him sticking as a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. All right, one other guy I want to talk about for day 2. And that is Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams, 5'11", 190 pounds. Now, he really shined he's been at Clemson 2 years. He's going to be a true junior, all right? His first year at Clemson, he had 523 yards and 4 touchdowns as a freshman, which was phenomenal. And last year, he took a step back. He was injured and didn't get on the field a lot. Clemson really reloaded their wide receiver room, a couple really nice 2027 incoming freshmen, 2027 NFL draft prospects that I actually have films on. That's how deep we go on this channel, fellas and folks out there watching this. But going back to Antonio Williams, man, he should have a really, really good year. My podcast co-host Jason DiRienzo and I, we have done film breakdowns on him as not much as last year, but as a freshman. And this guy is a space creator, played primarily in the slot. He will be a true slot receiver in the NFL. But if he can put get back to his ways that he was as a freshman, I think he is a solid day 2 selection in the NFL draft next year. But that's going to be, again, this is early, everybody. This is like really early projections. These guys are going to move up and down, and I'll be doing shows just like this throughout the year. I'm going to do my tight end show here very shortly as well. So, like I said, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you going through all of these players for me. I'm just trying to introduce them to you so you can write them down, take a screenshot at the end of all these players, and then you can kind of develop your own draft board a little bit as we go through the summer scouting series here, right? Fun part of all of this. All right, Tier 3, rounds 4 and 5. In 2024, 8 wide receivers were drafted. In 2023, we had 6 wide receivers drafted. So I'm just trying to give you some context about how many players in each of these tiers have been coming off the board. And I'm expecting it to be kind of similar. Like I said, I think there's 4 guys at the beginning in round 1. And then I think that, it'll level out kind of each year. It's about the same for each of the other tiers here. But anyway, first guy I want to talk about, Torrey Horton. All right, Colorado State. He's coming back for his 5th season, 6'2", 190 pounds. His last 2 seasons at Colorado State, he's had over 1,100 yards and 8 TDs in each season. He's primarily a boundary receiver. I want to see some more physicality. I think he's a great college player, but the reason I've got him on a day 3 here is I got to see more physicality with his frame and size and his ability to go up and get the ball. Fast receiver. I value physicality a lot when I'm scouting players. I'll be watching a lot of Torrey Horton film this year and in the offseason, but I've got him here pegged at least early in this process as a tier, in my tier 3 prospects with round 4 or 5 draft capital. All right. Manor, 6'2", 210 Stanford running back. This gentleman is from Canada. Now, if you're at all familiar with Ayamora or Ao Manor, I'm horrible with names. Sorry about that. This guy played against Colorado on this YouTube channel. I want you to go Elic, Elic, Ao Manor, and go check out my film. And he just dusted, all right, I mean, dusted Travis Hunter in that game, all right, for Colorado. Had the best second half of football I think I've ever seen. I mean, if you don't know or are not familiar with Elic, man, I want you to go on my YouTube channel here, and after you're done watching this video, I want you to go and just watch this video and the production that this guy had against Colorado in the second half of that game was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. That's how excited I am. But anyway, I think like this is a big physical receiver, 6'2", 210 pounds. He's coming back to Stanford this year. Should have a great season. And I could see him maybe jumping up to day 2 by the time, we get closer, obviously, to the draft season. And we've got a whole year of football left, right, to really dig into the scouting. And these are obviously going to change. Go take a look at that film. Really productive player. He had 1,000 yards last year, 6 TDs. I think like 400 yards came in that one second half and like 4 touchdowns. So he was super productive in that particular game. All right. We wanted to talk about another Texas wide receiver we spoke about earlier that I would have another one, Matthew Golden, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Has played at Houston for the last 2 years. Had average yardage, about 500 yards each season, 6-7 touchdowns, respectively, out of each season as well. But he's going to Texas. Probably going to be a starter next to Isaiah Bond, I'm assuming. But if not, he'll be the third wheel in that wide receiver room. All right. He is a true junior, so there is ability that he might stay for his senior year. But anyway, he was an exciting player, really flashed his film in Houston for the last 2 years. Kind of similar to that Tank Dell mold a little bit with some speed, acceleration, good hands, twitchy receiver. So keep an eye on Matthew Golden. Let's see what he can do in Texas this year if he can elevate his draft stock, all right? Another guy on the move is Deion Burks, all right? And he played at Purdue for 3 years, all right? But he now transfers to Oklahoma, 5'11", 195 pounds. Now in the spring game at Oklahoma, he just tore it up. He just lit it up. For 3 years at Purdue, hasn't been super productive. His first year at Purdue, he didn't do anything. Second year at Purdue, 149 yards. Last year, 629 yards and 7 TDs. So he broke out as a true junior, coming back for his senior year. Decides to go and play with Jackson Arnold, one of my favorite young quarterbacks in college football. Deion Burks flashed the spring game. People are expecting him. Nick Anderson is another receiver who I maybe could have added to this show, but I think he's more of a 2026 wide receiver prospect. But Deion Burks, I'm expecting big things, 5'11", 195. I expecting him to, really do well. He played outside. 91% of his reps were played out in the boundary at Purdue the last season. So let's see what he can do at Oklahoma. All right, one of my under the radar wide receivers for the 2025 draft class, Xavier Restrepo from Miami, 5'10", 198 pounds. All right, this guy is a true slot receiver, tough, physical, good hands. First 3 years at Miami, not a lot of production. He had 500 yards over 3 seasons. Last year, over 1,000 yards, 5 TDs. Now, if you're an analytics guy, you're probably going to be like, I'm out on him, late breakout, late producer. We just saw Xavier Legette do nothing for 3 years and get first-round draft capital. So, you got to keep an open mind with this. But this guy, if there's a team in the NFL that is looking for a tough, physical slot receiver, Restrepo right now, I think, is a great, great option. I got him here early, day 3, because I think that's where he's going to come off the board, being an older prospect a little bit. But you never know, man. He is going to be – there's a lot of wide receivers down there in Miami right now, so hopefully he can get target share. But he's a security blanket. You got Cam Ward down there now throwing the ball in Miami, and I expect a big season from Restrepo coming up. All right. Last guy I want to talk about, another transfer, man. The transfer portal has been fun, man. All these players are changing teams and looking for better opportunities, getting nil money, whatever the reason. But Jeremy Bernard, a Washington receiver who was just buried on the depth chart behind Dunze, McMillan, and Polk last year. Well, he played at Michigan State his first season in 2022, went to Washington last year, only had 377 yards and 1 TD, but he certainly flashed. I mean, we all watched, at least scouts like me, a ton of Washington games. And this guy flashed a little bit. Well, he decided to transfer to Alabama and play with Jalen Milroe, and he could arguably be the wide receiver one in Alabama. And going to the SEC, I love players who go to the SEC. It's one of the reasons why Juice Wells, when he went to South Carolina for those 2 years, and then, go Ole Miss, he stayed at the SEC. I love it when players transfer into the SEC and plays with the best conference as far as talent level, I think, in college football. So Bernard has the great opportunity to go to Alabama, be the number one guy. And if he does that, I mean, he could be an early day 3 pick, maybe even day 2. But we'll have to see, what his production looks like on the field. All right. So I got tier 4. All right. That rounds out my tier 3. Tier 4, rounds 6 and 7. In 2024, 11 wide receivers were drafted. In 2023, 13 wide receivers were drafted. All right. So these are the players that I got right now that I feel, again, are probably late day 3 picks, have the ability with a good season to, maybe even go up to tier 2. Who knows? But at least these are players that I've got on my radar that I'm going to be heavily scouting this summer. Names that you should know as well, just to get familiar with the names. And the first guy I want to talk about, one of my favorite receivers in college football, Colby Young, 6'5", 215 pounds, played 2 seasons at Miami. Really, really more of a boundary receiver. 95% of his reps were out on the boundary last year at Miami. 574 yards, 5 TDs. He transfers to Georgia, all right? He's going to play with Carson Beck, and he's got the ability now. That Georgia wide receiver room with Ladd McConkey gone and Bowers gone, there's a lot of targets open in Georgia. And I am super excited to see what Colby Young, again, going from the ACC to the SEC. I love it. Big boundary, physical receiver, maybe like a George Pickens kind of physicality, right? When George Pickens was at Georgia. But anyway, keep your eye on Colby Young, man. He's one of my favorite, late risers, man, going into the draft next year. Super excited to see what Colby Young does on the field at Georgia this year. One of my favorite players, like I said, in college football. Super excited to see what he does. All right, Kyron Lacy, 6'2", 215 pounds, LSU wide receiver. We know Thomas Jr., right? He's gone. The other guy, what's his name? Oh my goodness, how can I not? I gotta say his name. I scouted him and everything forever. And what the hell's his name? Let's see. Come on. Malik Neighbors. Sorry, had a little brain fart there. But in any case, Kyron Lacy now had a great spring, and they need wide receivers, right? Jaden Daniels is gone right now, so they got Nussmeier, who is a young quarterback who's been patiently waiting his turn at LSU. Kyron Lacy shined in the spring, and he is getting talked up by the coaching staff down there that he could be a sleeper in the NFL draft. So I've got him here in tier 4, thinking, okay, he's probably going to be a late day 3 guy, but with a great season. And if he emerges, he played at LA Lafayette, all right, for 2 seasons. Then he went to LSU, so he's a 5th-year player, older, okay? But like I said, with Neighbors gone, Thomas Jr. gone, now all of a sudden he is the wide receiver there that could potentially be the wide receiver 1 and get just peppered with targets and have a breakout season, all right? And if he does, he's going to get the NFL draft capital, all right? J. Michael Sturdivant, all right, 6'3", 205-pound wide receiver from UCLA. Got him here. He's on a lot of draft boards. I got to do more scouting on him, but he played at Cal for 2 years. He was at UCLA last year. Comes back to, again, for his senior year at UCLA. We'll have to see what he does. Got to watch more film on him. But he played, mostly out boundary. He made some nice catches and stuff like that. But, again, a player that I need to watch, but a name that is on a lot of draft boards out there that, if a good season, he could get some day 3 draft capital. Squirrel White from Tennessee, 5'10", 165-pound, another explosive kind of playmaker. He's been at Tennessee for 2 years, going into his true junior year. Last year, he had 764 yards and 2 TDs. Let's keep an eye and see what he does. And the last player I want to talk about is Will Shepherd. All right, at Vanderbilt. He's now going to Colorado, playing with Shedeur Sanders, 6'3", 198 pounds. He's played 4 years at Vanderbilt, over 4 years, 2,000 yards, 21 touchdowns. He's been a productive player. I can't say I've watched a lot of Will Shepherd, but he's a name that I've heard in the draft circles as far as a 2025 wide receiver prospect. So There you guys got it, man. There is my top 20. I think I may have given you 2 extras. Maybe it's 22 players. I'm not sure. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed the show. Hit that subscribe button. Like I said, you play Devy, you play Dynasty, and you're looking to get early looks at the future draft classes, man. This is what this channel is dedicated to. I am always going to be in front of all the Dynasty YouTube channels out there. That scout these players towards the end of their, seasons getting draft capital. I'm going to get you in early. We're going to be talking about these players on my podcast with my podcast co-host Jason DiRienzo. We're going to be doing all sorts of great videos on here. And if you want a database and you're interested in learning more about how to scout these players early in a database, I got a database product called Devy to Dynasty Dashboard, where I've got the ranks of my 2025 draft class, 2026 NFL draft class, 2027 NFL draft class. Super cheap, $25 a year. Buy me a case of beer. I'll give you a 2-week trial. Hit me up on the show card that you're going to see at the end of this video. There'll be information how to contact me. Thank you for watching. And again, hit that subscribe button. Enjoy your day.